Welcome one and all to another repainting video of the characters from the main set of the Dark Souls board game. Today I'm going over the little dudes in the set, the hollows, both the swordsmen and the crossbowmen. Crossbowmen?
And engage in jolly cooperation.
The giveaway is still running, so make sure to stick around to find out more, as I'll be discussing it more at the end of the video. So aside from all the bosses that come with the board game, you also get a load of little gribblies to fight before you take on a mini boss or a main boss, or even a mega boss. And within the little gribblies you get 6 hollows, 3 crossbowmen and 3 swordsmen. They are average miniature tabletop height of around 30mm figures. I don't paint that many minis anymore these days, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. So here are my original swordsmen that I painted over a year ago. Oh, killed one already. Oops. This is the original one I did last year. I didn't do a lot to it really. It was one of the very first ones I ever painted, and I kind of just whacked on a grey, a bit of metallic and slopped a load of Null oil on. I think to jazz them up a bit, because they are lifeless by name and nature, some colour on the clothes could help them be a bit more eye-catching possibly. Same with the crossbowmen. It was very muted and dull in colour, which to be honest does suit the hollows, but I think we can add a bit more to them to make them seem a bit more interesting at least. So here they all are, ready to be primed, so let's do exactly that. Another jobbed. To begin with, I'll just start with the swordsman, and we're going to start off by zenithal highlighting with some white ink in my airbrush. I also have this little handy handle that I printed which holds minis in place for painting. You can just buy these online or in Games Workshop though if you wanted. So once the mini is fixed in place on the handle, I'm just going to load the ink into the airbrush and we can get highlighting. So from a high and slightly angled position, I'll be spraying directly down onto the mini to create an obvious light source coming down onto them, leaving the undersides nice and dark and shaded and the upper sides nice and bright. Because we'll be using contrast paints on this fella, a bright highlight underneath will work really well with it. So the first colour I want to try out for this guy is Elden Yellow, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which will be the main pop of colour on it. And that's going to go on this shawl thing that sits underneath the metallic armour. And I'm just using one of my Games Workshop shader brushes to apply this stuff on. Now this contrast stuff will react differently to different undercoats, which is why I thought zenithal highlighting would be a good starting point, so you can see how it reacts to the light versus the dark. The next contrast paint I'll be using will be this Basilicanum Grey mixed with some contrast medium, which is basically like a thinning agent for contrast paints. And I'll be using this to act as the main dark material on parts that I don't want to be the same as the yellow, because we want that yellow to be the main focus in the center of the model. So just using this across the sleeves and the trousers. Then for the actual metal parts, I want to keep it simple, so just a layer of lead belcher on them will do the trick, and that's going to be applied to the wider areas of the breastplate. Then for the darker parts of the metals, I just want to use some of this Iron Warriors metallic, which looks kind of less like gunmetal and more like iron. It is in the name, to be fair. Then for lighter metallic tones, I'm just using this Runefang steel, which is the brightest metallic that I have, and using this on brighter parts of the armor and the sword and the shield. Then it's just a case of going between the 3 metallics to build out the shades on the armor, the breastplate, chainmail, the sword, the helmet and the shield, using the Iron Warriors for darker parts and using Runefang steel for the brighter parts. Then I'm just going to add some more colour to this yellow, so to build up some of the stronger tones and some more highlights, I want to use a fine layer or precision brush with some Avalon Sunset, and using this yellow to start building lighter tones to the upper parts of this cloth that would get the most light exposed to it. So for his little dead face and the rest of the skin, I want to use some bone colour as a base, so I'll just start off with some more cast bone which we can build upon. Then I just want to add in some highlights to his face and the rest of the skin, so I'll start detailing in some little areas with Wraithbone, which is a much brighter version of a bone colour, sort of like an off-white, just to bring it out from the previous bone colour. Now we're going to dead him up a bit, so some grey will do the trick, and Celestia Grey is what I decided to go for, and I'm just going to add little strokes and scratches of it just across the skin, because then I'm adding in some catacomb flesh for different details, trying to make it look a bit charred, you know. I'm just kind of freestyling this a bit, you know, adding in different strokes and scratches around just to kind of build it up a bit more. The more you mix it up, the more interesting it will look. Now for the leathery bits on the armour, I'm just going to start off with Mournfang Brown as the base across all the little bits of the leather. And the same as what we've done with all the other parts, I'm just going to add in some little strokes of highlights with Xandri Dust, and I'll do this across all the parts that we just painted brown. Then copying the same method for the trousers, just adding in a mix of grey and brown strokes onto the grey contrast that we had already previously applied, and then just building them up layer by layer. Don't forget the little legs on display, just copy the same method that we did before on the face and the arms. Then to finish this little fella off, I'm just thinning down some black to a glazed consistency and then using this as a wash over all the little shadowy areas just to build up a bit of contrast on them, focusing mainly on areas where light would not be hitting and where most shadows would be cast onto the model, if that makes sense. So here is the difference between the two models. The original one was really only one tone across it. The new one still remains relatively muted to try and still keep with the aesthetic of a hollow, but at least with some brighter shine on the helmet and some added pops of colour and detailing to the leathers, it at least looks a bit more interesting. For the crossbowmen, it's pretty much the exact same process as the swordsman, so I won't repeat what I've just done because that's very boring, but instead I'll just show you the parts that I did differently. So my thinking was I didn't want to go yellow for these guys, I want to make them stand out on their own, so instead I'm going to be using some Leviathan blue contrast paint to be the main cloth colour. Then to highlight that, I'm using some of this Talassar blue contrast paint, and it should whack up the brightness and colour saturation a little bit on these parts. And with that bit done, I'll just copy the same thing that we did for the swordsman on it so we can compare it to the original one. And here is how they look together. The old ones look pretty much the exact same as the swordsman did, not too much colour going on with it, pretty dark and pretty dull. And with the updated one, we've got some interesting pops of colour with the blue. The skin seems a bit brighter, yet still dead enough to suit a hollow. And here is the two updated hollows together for a final showing. So now with the little gribblies done, it's time to carry on the current giveaway. So this is part 3 of the giveaway, and we are about a third of the way through the series. And as explained in the previous repainting videos, on Sundays I'll be releasing a new video as part of this repainting series. And by the end of the series, we will have a fully painted collection of the main board game set. This is the prize. This exact and complete Dark Souls board game painted by me. To enter, all you have to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel and leave a comment below answering this week's question. I will be picking a winner from the comments across all videos in this repainting series, so the more videos you comment on, the more chance you have to win. Apparently the questions I've been asking have been a little bit hard. You know, I asked you to tell me your favourite game and your favourite boss, which, you know, actually is, in hindsight, quite a tricky thing to ask for FromSoft games. I would say about 80% of the replies to the favourite boss have been Slave Knight Gale, which, to be honest, I totally predicted would happen. He's my favourite as well. But, you know, that in mind, I'm going to make it a little bit easier for you this week. So for this one, just comment below and tell me what game got you into the Soulsborne franchise. Was it Dark Souls 1? Was it Elden Ring? Was it Bloodborne? Was it Sekiro? You know, I have a very weird introduction into FromSoft, as my first game was Dark Souls 2. Don't ask. But as ever, gang, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop a like and hit the subscribe button. It really does help the channel grow and to reach new people, and I just want to keep bringing you bigger and better videos every time. Also, click the bell to turn on notifications if you're feeling so inclined, just so you get updated the moment a new video drops. But thank you for spending your time with me today, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out, gang, and don't you dare go hollow.